Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Apologies for last week's lack of an episode, but I didn't make any content the week prior to that, including that Sunday, so just little like isolated vacation where I didn't even play a video game for 6 days straight. I didn't play a mobile game. I didn't play like Diablo or what? Diablo wasn't out yet. What am I talking about? I didn't play Maple Story. I didn't play Final Fantasy. I have been playing Diablo this last week because of the Switch version. But yeah, so I just had a hiatus for a week. So apologies for that, for no Q&A last week. We're taking the questions from last week. Some people have added some questions since then, so it actually worked out to get some extra questions. And we're doing this live on Twitch, so we will have some extra questions there. So just whatever I have, I'm going to roll with since I didn't do an episode last week. Before we get started, however, I do want to thank our patrons. Now, this list is probably off by a few names, I have a feeling, just in case. But, you know, gotta thank our patrons, been supporting through hashtag demonetize, and through weeks where I can just take a hiatus because I got too much going on the back end of things, which you guys know what that's like. But anyway, let's thank first our patrons of light. We have Khuja Cross on Jenova. Those of you on YouTube will see an image for Khuja Cross, who provides them every week. And I don't have anything clever to say, except thank you. That's not clever. So thanks all the same, Khuja. Appreciate it. Kurenai, our other patron of light, also has an image. This, I think, I only have one image for them. I don't think they've been providing me with new images. If they have, I haven't seen them in my email or my Discord or anything. So I'm just going to use the same image I used on State of the Realm this last week for them. So thank you, Kurenai, as well. Thank you to our 2 patrons of light. We also have plenty of other sponsors over on Patreon for the YouTube channel. We've got our standard sponsors. We've got Dark Lumina from Jenova, Marianne, Nye-rick and Kaya Amatsuki of Midgard Armor, Ramil Gaming, Sabo Empire, Mizra, Red Wing Baron FC from Zalera, Fray Blackheart, Cidus, Oreo and Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, That Lame Weeb, Ashen Emiya of Cerberus, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We have our elite sponsors. We have Carol, Ray, Senshi, Shadowlink on Tonberry, Dom, Sukawake from Jenova, Lemilionella of Midgard Armor, Sarah and the Fennel Family, Janhyua Yotsuyu, Kifka and the Great Eagles on Exodus, Dark Graver, Kadayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rah Xephon from Exodus, Rynoet West the Purple Warrior, Edric Red Steel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiac, Sarah Cream and Tribes from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goichi Falfar of Siren, Hirsch First of Fairy, Phoenix Town FC on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiac. And then we have our premium sponsors. We have Alchemy, Jonathan, Shinka, Casual Heroes on Midgard Armor, Tatachi Taka on Hyperion, Kana Azuki of Jenova, Ustarla on Coral, Sathal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth Diablo, Holy Tabasco, Red Thorn Asura, Askin Hawk, Crash 015, Mustang, Serenity FC on Ultros. Let's see, I lost track of that one. Where was I? There you go. Kakazuma, Serial Killer on Cactar, Ignis Farragun from Excalibur. Wait, I like skimmed over those names. I said Serenity FC on Ultros, then just cut. Kakazuma, Serial Killer on Cactar, Ignis Farragun from Excalibur, Valestra of Fanfrit, Not Quarters from Excalibur, Krovos Moonscar, Private Mikey, Spike, Nani Kirasame, Rudy Whitaker, Tin Colossus, Skill Hackman, Roll Jr., and Killtastic Jones. There we go. We got our way through that one, as my Twitch chat has pointed out. And with that, I thank you all again, and we will now move on to our weekly Q&A. Let's get started. All right, so question number 1. I think I took a look at these beforehand. I think they were all 14-related questions. So let's see. Hey, Haps, long time no see. Hello. Longer now that this question is actually 2 weeks old. I know lore-based questions are usually Ethos' bag, but I wanted to ask you anyway, as to do something that's bothered me with 4.3. Between the various side quest trials and dungeons we have since Stormblood launch, we have fought 3 or 4 of the Great Lords of Principle, 2 of the 3 deities of Japanese myth. Seiryu is obviously along the way in some other form, but as long as we fought Susanoo and Tsukiyomi, seems like a missed opportunity to not even mention Amaterasu, who is always associated with the previous 2. Lore-wise, it'd be easy to introduce her since Tsukiyomi and Susanoo are both worshipped by the Kojin and celebrated in some form. Who's to say they haven't yet, and who's to say that they won't? The 4 lords aren't really anything to do with Amaterasu, as you've kind of pointed out here with Susanoo and Tsukiyomi. It's implied almost that, what's his name? Who has to do with the sun. Man, I've been forgetting names, man, with all the Final Fantasy 14 people. Her friggin' brother. His name is just escaping me because I call him douchebag. So his name is just completely escaping me right now. Begins with an A, I think. But his name, I think, is related to the sun as well, which is where Amaterasu is usually Asahi. There you go. Is that really the sun? Is that really Mr. Sun? I remember somebody explaining to me how it was possible to have him transform into Amaterasu way back when, due to you know, the affiliation his sister having with the moon and him potentially having an affiliation with the sun. But obviously we're not going to be dealing with that. I think it's still possible for Amaterasu to play a role leading into 4.5 and 4.55. And if not, he'll probably play a role somewhere in one of the quests that have to do with some of the, I guess some side quests we'll probably see with Doma or Hingashi in the coming months or patches after or even during 5.0. I don't think they'll ever completely rule out Amaterasu as anything to use, but it's just one of those things that'll always be there. The seed will be in our mind, and we'll just have to wait and see. They don't have to use them all right up front, but I think it's probable that we'll see something along those lines in the coming days, weeks, months, years, at some point. All right, question number 2. Greetings and bienvenue. If anyone gets the old cartoon reference, have a cookie. Yeah, I don't. So that's all you. I might if I thought about it more, but I don't, so I won't. Okie dokie, the question, I'm afraid, may be a wall of text. It is absolutely not. I've recently switched from Melee to Red Mage with Alphascape. It's my first time rating. I said roll Savage-wise. However, I find my damage numbers lacking at just over 5k. I want to improve, but find my learning difficulties getting in the way, a la slower learning, unable to line up buffs and keep a set rotation, unable to memorize patterns like O10 Savage. Maybe I'm asking the wrong person. Anything you could advise me on improving? So it doesn't even matter what role you're playing. Improving is literally the things you've said you can't do, and I think you're just telling yourself you can't do them. Because a lot of the times, lack of ability to improve is in one's own head. A great example is, like with me, like when earlier this year, the Tornado Kick rotation became a thing for Monk, I never told myself I was incapable of learning it, but I told myself I didn't need to learn it, and so I never really put the effort forth until sometime in the last month and a half, 2 months, and even that's been a much more lax effort. There's personal reasons why I didn't want to spend my time off-stream working on that when I was already getting through all the raids and meeting all the DPS checks for everything. But it's kind of like that. I just kind of mentally made myself kind of unable to improve, even though it was like telling myself a different thing. So that's kind of what you're doing with yourself right here. Like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do any of these things that would help improve my DPS. You can, you're just telling yourself that you can't. It's a mental game that you're playing right now. You're telling yourself you're slow at learning, you're telling yourself you're unable to do these things, when you should just be practicing doing them and accepting that you fuck up somewhere along the way. That it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be instant, and that it is a gradual process. That's all it really is. It doesn't really matter what role, class, anything you're playing. It's just, it's going to be harder on something you're less familiar with. And I think it's just growing pains. You just got to get through that. Once you get through the growing pains, you'll probably be fine. So stop beating yourself up and just do it. That's it. Just do it, practice it, fuck up, come back, do it again, fuck it up again, get it right eventually, and you'll be fine. All right, question number 3. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you're low lately. Sorry, I'm 12 years old. Hasn't been too much to bear. No, yeah, I took my break and now I'm doing a lot better. Anyway, I was curious about your thoughts, what your thoughts on materia are. In particular, do you think we should be able to extract materia from our gear? It seems almost pointless to meld the full 380 set when patch hits, then put on some 390, then lose all that again and have it put on the augmented. You know that you can pull materia out of gear, right? It's not a guaranteed system, but you know you can pull it out of the gear at a 40% chance. I think it's 40% chance for tier 6s. And I think it's like 60% chance for tier 5s or something like that. I don't know. It's been a while. So, you know, I know you don't have to meld. It's the don't bother 390 in anticipation. No, I don't think there's any problem with this. Materia is so abundant that putting it in... Honestly, the worst part about it is how much you lose when you're trying to overmeld. That's like, if I was going to criticize anything about the materia system, it would be that. But materia is so abundant nowadays, I can't even really criticize that. The only, I guess the real thing to criticize about materia is how much of a, I guess like it's not really a gameplay element. You're always just going to go for the same stats there that you would have been going for in your gear. So there's nothing really interesting about it, but how the melding actually works, the pulling out of the materia, the applying it, the upgrade process, making it so you have to consider, you know, the upgrade from 390 to 400 and whether or not, I think that maybe if there's any improvement, maybe the gear, maybe it's staying in the gear, but it's one item becoming a new item, so it doesn't really work. You'd have to systematically change how the armor is upgraded because it would have to not create a new item. It would have to be like an enchantment on top of the existing item, which creates its own issues because they don't have anything in place to do that properly. So, no, I don't really have any issues with it. The only changes I'd like to see is more interesting materia, maybe like, what did they used to call them in WoW? Were they called radiant slots? No, is that Diablo? I don't remember which game had radiant slots, which had something very, very unique in regards to like one piece, one like slot or one anything at all would be just for more unique pieces. I know, having played Diablo 3 on Switch lately, I think of the gems there and how they have legendary gems now, which have unique effects, and then you can level those up. Like, if they're going to do anything with materia, having a grade of materia that isn't just 40 crit, 40 skill speed, 40 whatever, like, I almost said accuracy. Fucking Maple Story making me think of that. Then that would be the one thing I'd want in 5.0. It's just one unique slot that just does something that's different than all the rest. Even if it's just one slot that you hold into consideration. Yeah, there's probably going to be one that's mathematically the best for everyone, and then there's no choices. That's how MMOs work anyway. But it is what it is, you know? You just gotta... It's the only thing I can really think of. Or multi-stat materia that you have to think about weighing slightly different. But even then, somebody will figure out what's best, and that's what we'll go for. So, fuck it. We're screwed. All the way. That's it. Alright, question number 4. Hey, Hap. Last Monday on October. Joke's on you. It's the first Monday of November now. So, we win. Just over a month until Shulk smashes. Yeah, alright. Well, anyway, bringing back Mercy Stroke. Listen, if Warriors want anything back right now, it's probably Bloodbath. But anyway, a total shot in the dark and power for time consuming gimmicks. I don't understand this one. Oh, okay. This one's a pretty basic question. The power of time one consuming gimmicks. I didn't understand why some of it was capped and some of it was bolded, some of it was unbolded. So I went with this one. After Eureka, do you prefer the next relic quest go back to farm this roulette, or are you open to another travel through somewhere else? So I think what they need to do is they need to take some of the concepts of Eureka and just apply them to the open world. I don't want like de-leveling. I don't mean that. I mean, like, you have this area that's designed to be hyper dangerous to even the max level players. They have this whole different leveling system in place, and it's just so isolated. My problem is that it's so isolated and away from the rest of the world that if you're dedicating your time to it, you're only dedicating your time to it. You can't dedicate your time to anything else. You can't kind of split things up. What was nice about the old relic quest is I could be queued in as a DPS for a dungeon, and then I could go do something else, like maybe do, you know, I don't know, go through my daily hunts or go through, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other examples. I could go through Fates, for example, going back to the really old one, while I was queued in for these dungeons, and I could really do anything to progress. If I can't do anything to progress on the Eureka Relic, I have to do Eureka. There's no alternatives. There's no way to queue up for one thing and be doing another thing and progressing at the same time. It's just so isolated from everything else. If you were to just kind of make areas in the zones we're going to that are above average danger, and there's objectives in those areas that are centric to a relic quest, that for me would be far more acceptable than creating this separate instance where you have to go to that instance in order to make any progress. I just feel like isolating it was my biggest issue with Eureka. So I do want the option to be able to like log in, do roulettes, do, you know, spam dungeons, whatever, and make some progress. But if they are going to take anything away from this, then just apply it to the zones that we're already getting and don't separate it in its own instance. And not just Atma farming, for the love of God. I mean, create something new, but create it within the open world zones. So that's it. I don't want to do another Eureka, man. I just don't want to do another one. That's all there really is to it. I don't feel like it's working. I don't feel like it's well enough received to warrant going past the 4 that were already guaranteed. And I hope we don't get this idea implemented in 5.0 at all. So if I had to just pick between 1 or 2 without cherry picking different details, I'd go back to the old way, to be honest. All right, question number... Oh, I was like question number 5, but I forgot. Somebody put like ... I think they asked the question, they got the answer to their question, so they like edited it out. So this is actually question number 4. Howdy, Mr. Happy. Something has been weighing heavy on my mind for a while now. When playing tank, I take pride in doing the best to perform my job. However, as of late, tanks were patched to generate hate much easier, and I've noticed more and more other tanks no longer using their tank stance at all, but instead focus on generating hate from their main hate combo and balance between using each combo. This makes me believe that in a future patch, tanks may just lose their stances altogether. What are your thoughts on the DPS stance, tanking trend, and tanking in general? I mean, the reason... Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You generate enough enmity. If you're playing well, it requires a lot more effort to hold aggro in DPS stance than it does to hold aggro in tank stance. Like, you generally generate just enough, but there's still things like, you know, provoking and then making sure to shirk. Shirk has really been one of the main things that allows you to do this. And improper use of provoking and shirking and properly passing aggro off does still screw you on enmity. Ask a white mage who's had to overheal for any reason, looking at like the first minute of God Kefka back in the day. Or look at any group that has a tank with lower gear than their DPS, like maybe the DPS got like the O12 Savage weapon, and the tank is still working on a low weapon, and maybe you don't have a ninja, or maybe it's on a part of the fight where they have to run out of melee range to do a mechanic, because that's the way you're deciding to do it. Like, all these factors play in, and yes, it is easier to hold aggro, but it's only easier if you use all the tools at your disposal, which is why it's such a big thing to not use tank stance at all. If anything, tank stance and enmity generation is not the thing. Not enough damage is dealt to the tanks to warrant using tank stance is probably the bigger concern if you're looking at it from a why does this even exist perspective. I like the idea of having DPS stances and tank stances, but what felt like the original reason for that is the person who's currently taking damage would be tank stance. The person who wasn't would have a reason to be in a DPS stance. It made sense when it was initially implemented. It just hasn't worked out that way as years and time has gone on, because they just don't put enough pressure on the tank. Putting more pressure on the tank means putting more pressure on the healer, or making it so the amount of damage the tank takes outside of tank stance is so severe that they just simply can't survive it without tank stance, and then there's no real sense of skill. What's the word I'm looking for? I was gonna say progression, but expression. There you go. There's no real skill expression in that anymore, because you're just sitting in tank stance and doing the same thing you would have been doing, but doing it shittier. Like, you know, it's a tough place to really be when it comes to anything at all. I like the idea of having both of them. There's just not enough pressure to use the tank stance overall. So I don't know. I like the idea. I just don't think it's at its full potential right now. I like tanks being able to push out tons of DPS, but just got to be smart about it. And it just makes it feel like the tank stance doesn't really serve a purpose. Bonus question, completely irrelevant, but I want to know, have you played the new Mega Man game? I've not had time to do it. Looks good though. I've seen some people play it and I like it. All right, question number 6. Hello there. Hi. How you doing? Great. Thanks. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I hope your break last week helped you relax enough and get better. Have a bonus of a soft, delicious French croissant. Okay, sorry, I had to do it. There's certain words where I just want to say them like way over the top. We had a discussion on State of the Realm about that water, which is called, it looks like it's pronounced La Croix. Apparently it's not. Apparently that's not in any way how to pronounce it. So, but I still call it La Croix over and over again, just because it's obnoxious. Anyway, speaking of French, I am one, so sorry for any spelling grammar mistakes, though I shouldn't be hard to understand as the lyrics have escaped. I have 2 questions and a little trivia I want to share from the latest State of the Realm, after one that you might find interesting or funny, but everything in spoilers for convenience sake. Maybe you're referring to the La Croix conversation then. Croissant. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's LaCroix. LaCroix is apparently how it's actually pronounced for the beverage, which bothers me, so I'm going to keep calling it La Croix. All right. Anyway, Eureka is supposed to end in 4.55. Since it's not really loved by the community, and Square must realize that most people just do it because it's relic content, my guess is they'll drop the exploratory mission type altogether in 5.0. If they do so, where do you think the resources used to make Eureka should go? Should they use it to expand more on existing content, or should they try something new like they did with Deep Dungeon and Wild Eureka? I think... So the big thing about Eureka is what are you expending? You're expending people who need to make a new area. You're expending... obviously, combat balance. But I'm wondering exactly how many resources it took to develop the combat system, or the system of leveling and de-leveling and all that stuff. I wonder how much that actually took. We know Eureka took a lot more effort than like a dungeon would, for example. Like Eureka, I think they gave an exact number. I think they said it required like 3 times the work to do 1 Eureka versus 1 dungeon or something like that. I have to find the quote. Maybe they weren't talking about Eureka. Maybe they were talking about something else. It could have been talking about Ultimate, but I don't know. It's without knowing exactly how many resources each individual part of Eureka took. It's hard to really say what they should work. Oh, I'm sorry. Heaven on High took 3 times as much work. You're right. You're right. Okay, so it wasn't this. Yeah, without knowing exactly how much more effort went into creating the Eureka zones versus creating any other form of content, it's really hard to make a judgment call on that. I'd prefer they take the resources and work on something else that isn't, you know, one trial, one raid boss. As much as I want more of those things, because they've been consistent, and even the worst of them has still been a consistently okay minimum experience, even the dungeons, which have gotten a lot better. But they're not what people want. People don't want more of the same. We could settle for it, but we don't necessarily want it. So I'd rather they take another chance on something else, just nothing that's like an exploratory mission, nothing that's like Diadem, nothing that's like Eureka. What that thing is, I don't know. There's a bunch of things you could do, but I don't know what it was, what it could be that I'd want them to use the resources for Eureka on. So I just know that another dungeon, one more raid boss, just taking those exact resources, throwing them there, satisfactory, but not really a good enough expression of what they're willing to do to improve the game. As for the second part here, those are those trivias. Okay, so the trivia, as much as it's nice to read, it's not a question, so I kind of want to move on so I have time for enough questions from the Twitch chat. So it's about memes, which is good, but I had a bunch of people tell me about what memes or memes or whatever the fuck they're actually called actually were during State of the Realm. So we'll have to just go to the next question, but thank you. All right, and the last question we have on the forums before we move over to the Twitch questions. Hey, Mr. Happy, hope you're doing well and looking forward to hearing your thoughts when you get back from Vegas. Or you're going to be hearing my thoughts well before I get back from Vegas. That night, I'm going to be recording a video. So I've recently started podcasting. I'm going to start recording videos soon, and currently I'm using a headset with a mic. However, with Christmas coming, I'm thinking of upgrading my setup. While I know a scissor arm and pop filter are mandatory, they're not, but you really should have one, just so you don't get a bunch of additional sounds and popping. So do you have any recommendation when it comes to mics, headsets? So I would want to use a mic for the videos and podcasts with a Bluetooth headset for streaming. So, I mean, headset-wise, I'm always going to recommend the SteelSeries stuff. I've been using SteelSeries for years now, but I don't use the microphone. The microphone sounds like a headset microphone last I checked. You can, like, you can mess with some settings to make it sound better, but I just never use a headset microphone ever for everything that I do. So I won't really comment much on the headset microphones. Just those are what I use. I use the SteelSeries ones. I've used the Arctis 3, the Arctis 5, the Arctis 7, the Arctis 3 Bluetooth. I'm using the Arctis Pro wireless right now. They're all good. And I've used the ones before the Arctis line as well. So those are the ones that I generally end up going through recommending. But with the headset specifically, it's tough. You also want a Bluetooth headset, which means the Arctis 3 Bluetooth's your only real good option for that of the ones that I can effectively speak about. And again, I don't know how well the microphone actually works. Like, I've heard it, but you know, I haven't messed with the settings to make it sound better. So as for a microphone, generally an XLR microphone is usually better. Whether it's, you know, an Audio Technica or a Razer or whatever the heck you're looking for. Usually an XLR plugged into a mixer is pretty good. I know there's this new mixer called the Go XLR that's been making waves in the streaming industry. It's brand new, came up from Helicon, I believe. And then there's like, I don't even use an XLR because I just am terrible at using mixers. So, but I might swap over with the Go XLR now out. I have an Audio Technica ATB 2020 USB. There's also the ATB XLR one. So, I mean, depends on what your budget's looking for. You can get away with USB microphones as long as the microphone's somewhat decent quality, as you're hearing from mine right now, other than the fact that my pitch is always up and down because of the way that I speak. It does sound okay, but an XLR one plugged into a mixer with the right settings and learning how the mixer works would definitely be the better option, especially if you ever want to do something with multiple microphones and you want to be able to adjust everyone's individual levels. Then, especially for podcasting, it's a lot better. A lot better. So those are some of the recommendations that I have. You also mentioned there's also Blues microphones. They have XLR ones as well. I've used the Razer Siren Pro and that worked really well. The Audio Technica has been some of the more consistent microphones that I've used though. So take a look at Audio Technica and you might find something that you want from them. But anyway, that's the last question on the forums. I am going to maybe instead of muting my microphone, I should do what I was trying to do and turn off the questions from the screen. That's all right. I haven't done this in 2 weeks, so let's say you can say I'm doing it a little bit less efficiently this week. Anyway, let's get some questions from the Twitch chat. So, go. Alright, so while I had probably about an hour's worth of conversations, I don't think I answered any actual questions to add to Mondays with Mr. Happy, so I guess we are just going to end it with the 7 questions that we had over on the forums. If you ever want to be part of the discussion, even if we don't end up including a question or an answer inside of Mondays with Mr. Happy, just come to the stream. Usually on Sundays between like noon and 1 p.m. We'll usually start with the forum questions, and then as it progresses on, we'll always move into talking with the Twitch chat. And if there's any questions I want to include in the video, then I throw them in there anyway. But it's a whole hell of a long conversation that we've had over there, talking about all sorts of various topics. So keep that in mind if you have time to come by the streams on Sunday and you're watching this on YouTube. But if you want to just ask me a question, then on the YouTube video, you go to the description, you go to the forum post that's there, and you ask the question on the Dream Network forums. It's as simple as that. Well, bam. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. We'll be back next week with another one, I promise, this time. On the Twitch side of things, I'm going to be hanging out for a few more minutes, but on the YouTube side of things, thank you for watching. Thank you to all our patrons for supporting as usual. And until next time, take care.